very excited today because we're inaugurating a new series in our webinars, which started in March, I think, going back some 26 webinars on pedagogy teaching issues. Most of our participants are international business educators. I see actually a lot of familiar names, but I see some new names as well. So those folks who keep coming are accustomed to our pedagogy focused, trade focused, and research focused topics where we feature some distinguished experts, our faculty or faculty from around the country and business people. But today we're starting a new series. We call it Conversations with Global Business Leaders. And the issue is how these folks are coping with the rapid changes in the macro environment, how they are leading their company, what kind of initiatives they have on the agenda. So today we're very, very fortunate. We're privileged to have Steve Voorhees. Welcome, Steve, this morning to our Georgia State Mack Robinson College webinar. Steve, of course, is the CEO of WestRock. WestRock, I'm sure some of you have heard, a leading provider of differentiated paper and packaging solutions. They're actually a hometown company right in our backyard here, and we feel very, very proud of their accomplishments. They are, I think, I believe you are the second largest packaging company in the United States, Steve. And of course, with your global footprint, you're one of the largest, world's largest paper and packaging companies. I think something like $18 billion, 50,000 employees, 30 different countries. So those numbers by themselves are impressive, but those are not necessarily adequate to get you listed in Fortune's top most admired companies, world's most admired companies. I think this year you appeared in this list, most admired companies list, for the 5th consecutive year. So congratulations to you. So it is the leadership, it is the agenda that you put forth, it is the culture that you cultivate that gets you in that list. So Steve, just a little bit of background about Steve. He was CEO of Rakuten previously and served for that company in various leadership positions, including president and CEO, executive VP, chief financial officer, and chief administrative officer. Steve, of course, is on the board of directors of WestRock, but several other organizations as well, Truist Financial Corporation, and the NAM, National Association of Manufacturers, 3DE, American Forest and Paper Association, and the Paper and Packaging Board. Steve has a Bachelor of Arts degree in economics and mathematics from Northwestern University and an MBA from the University of Virginia, Darden School of Business. I know, Steve, that doesn't do justice to your immense qualifications, but I know folks are very eager to listen to you and hear a little bit more about your company as well. So today we're joined by our own dean at the J. Mack Robinson College of Business at Georgia State University, Richard Phillips. Richard, we call him Rich. He is the 7th dean of the Robinson College of Business. He has been a long-time faculty member and actually an innovative faculty member and also administrator. I remember you leading the risk management department for many years, Rich, before you went into the dean's office and served as associate dean for new projects, innovation, and now you have been leading us since 2014. And I can say that obviously we take a lot of pride in the Robinson College of Business, but it is a world-class business school. It's a business school that is on the forefront of changes, and much of it we owe to leadership of Rich, who's been able to transform our curriculum, our faculty, and our programs to produce graduates who are ready for the digital economy. We've invested a lot in STEM areas and integrated them into our core activities. Students now connect these analytical skills with business concepts that allow them to innovate wherever they end up in organizations, business, nonprofit organizations, in rapidly changing environments. Rich Phillips is a professor of risk management and insurance. He's an accomplished scholar there, more than 50 publications and many teaching awards. He also serves on the boards of directors of Munich American Reassurance Corporation. He's a senior consultant to Charles River Associates. He has led academic organizations such as the American Risk and Insurance Association and the Risk Theory Society, is their president, a trustee for S.S. Hubner Foundation, and board chair emeritus for the Swift School, a private school serving the Celestic children in Georgia. So that is also a short bio, Rich. I hope you don't mind, but we have a great guest here with us, and I know it's going to be a very fulfilling and meaningful discussion. So I turn it to you.
Great, and thank you, Tamir, for that introduction for myself and for Steve. I greatly appreciate it, and welcome to everyone for attending the first conversation with executives. It's exciting to be part of the new series that you're starting up here today, and I appreciate the opportunity to help get it kicked off. And Steve, welcome to you, and thank you for agreeing to be the very first guest on this inaugural series.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Good morning. So why don't we get started? Steve, Tamir gave a little bit of an introduction to WestRock, but even he admitted that you can't do it justice in just a couple of sentences. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about WestRock? I'm sure that there's certainly a lot more to say.
Okay, so thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, Rich, and Tamir and Hannah. I appreciate your support and getting everything organized. I do have a couple slides, and so Hannah, if you could put up the first slide. Okay, so there's a couple things I want to point out about this slide. So one, this is the pictures of a plant that we operate in New Lenox, Illinois, which is Chicago, and they make a lot of corrugated boxes, over 2 billion square feet of boxes per year. But we put our priorities in each one of our plants, and you look at safety as priority one. I'll be talking about safety, but just wanted to focus on that, because in our plant operations, if you focus on safety, a lot of other things go naturally right. And if you don't focus on safety, a lot of other things don't go so well. So safety of our teammates is first and foremost. That's one thing I wanted to point out. The other is I want to point out the date, which is October 1st. And this is Happy New Year for us. So our fiscal year is September 30. So one of the great things about working at WestRock is you get to celebrate the new year twice. And I think as each of you go forth in your careers, I thought it was a little bit unusual that you have the fiscal year end in September. But I'll tell you, from a pace of life, it's a very nice thing, because when you get to the holidays, you're not doing performance reviews and trying to figure out where you came for the year. We file our 10K each year before Thanksgiving, and so we still continue to work through the holidays, but we don't have the added burden of closing out and budgeting and all. So let's go on to the next slide. I think Tamir said much of the material on here. So we're a good-sized company. We're $18 billion in sales. We employ 50,000 people. We operate around the world from 300 operating locations, and we make fiber-based packaging. Fiber-based packaging is a very good place to be now, with the increase in emphasis on sustainability. And then our product has done very well. We report our business into two categories. I'm not sure how meaningful the categories are, but that's when I say, because they're both fiber-based packaging, and one segment is corrugated packaging, which is a box, so it'll have fluted material inside. Those box plants tend to be distributed more called across the country because you're shipping air when you have a box. And so a typical radius for a box plant shipment would be a couple hundred or 300 miles. Once you get larger, farther than that, it just does not ship very effectively. And then we operate paper mills, which a roll of paper is very dense, and so that can ship much longer distances. And those mills tend to be located where the fiber is. And we make paper from both recycled fiber and virgin fiber, meaning trees. And so the virgin fiber mills are close to where the trees are. In the Southeast, where we operate, where we are today, is a world-class area for growing pine. And then we also operate in the Pacific Northwest and also in Canada. And we own land in Brazil, which we grow trees there very competitively. It's a very low-cost area of the world for virgin fiber. Each one of the markets we're in, we're a leader. We're number one or number two in the various markets we participate in. And so we have the scale to operate very effectively. So let's go to the next slide. And if you can just press through, it'll build out. And I talked about the virgin recycled fiber mix and the containerboard mills. New Lenox is a converting plant. And so we operate several hundred of those. And then we focus on differentiated paper and packaging solutions. Differentiated is something in the eye of the beholder, but we try to add something special for the customer to help them compete. And we have a strategic multinational footprint. So we're sustainability, circularity is really important, and it's increasing in importance. And we're the circular economy in action. Let's go to the next slide. And our vision is customer focused. So we want to be the premier partner, unrivaled provider of sustainable winning solutions for our customers. And I'll try to expand on that a little bit on the next slide. And so I'd go ahead and build this out. And so we focus on our sales excellence, commercial excellence programs, really working closely with our customers to try and figure out what we can do to customize a value-added solution for them. And we've identified our value proposition along 4 measures. So our customers, if we can help them grow their sales, that's probably the single best thing that we can do. And fortunately, fiber-based packaging can be used for displays at retail. You can print on them. I think we all have the unboxing experience, which particularly with the advent of e-commerce becomes even more important. Second, we have lower your total cost. And I'll contrast that with lower your cost, because one of our challenges working with our customers is our customers have procurement organizations, and the procurement organizations like lowering their unit cost. And we like lowering their total cost, meaning that we'd like to get inside the customer's facilities and see what we can do to allow our packaging to help them run more efficiently. So for example, we'll install machinery inside their plants that will allow them to operate more effectively, potentially reduce labor cost, potentially right-size their boxes so that they're not making bigger boxes than necessary to ship their product. And so lower your total cost is the second. Improve your sustainability, that's important. Most of our customers have put out very ambitious sustainability goals for their packaging over the next several years. So many of them are saying they're going to reduce or convert all of their packaging so it's recyclable, reusable, or compostable by either 2025 or 2030. And that's easy to say, it's very difficult to do. And fortunately, we have the capability to help our customers do that. And then last here on the value proposition is minimizing your risk. And a lot of success in business is delivering things on time in full, and we measure that. And our cost to the customer as a percent of their total business is relatively small. However, if our box doesn't show up on time with perfect quality in full, they can't ship their product. And so it's really important that they have reliable suppliers, and that's obviously how we position ourselves with our customers. And then we like to solve our customers' most challenging problems. So with that, let's go to the next slide. I'll have some examples. And so there's a lot on here. In the upper right, there's, just point out, there's a Colgate toothpaste box. And so we make the folding carton through our joint venture that we have with Grupo Gondi in Mexico. And then the red box is, we'll manufacture in Winston-Salem, actually pack that out. So if you go to Amazon, you could buy this box, and it's ship and own container, SIOC, which is SIOC. And our e-commerce customers are looking at doing more and more of that, because that avoids the e-commerce company to have to pick and pack a separate box to put the toothpaste boxes in this example. And so if you just, Rich, if you were going to order this, then I can just put Rich Phillips with your address on it and ship directly to you. So that's an example. The Joy Razor is a nice product. It's all paper-based packaging. We made that for Gillette, Procter & Gamble to put, and that's a separate brand that they sell in Walmart. Another example, if you're in college, you may drink beer. So there's the Corona there, and there's a can collar product that takes the plastic rings out of play and replaces it with a paper-based ring that is just more sustainable. So that's a couple examples of the products that we manufacture. Let's go on to the next.
Welcome to WestRock's innovative specialty packaging plant in Holland, Michigan. Our 150 teammates are driven to safely work together 24 hours a day to produce more than 350 million folding cartons and 60 million labels each year. We're committed to providing winning solutions and our customers for a wide variety of products, including over-the-counter and prescription medicines.
We are strategically located for our customers. For example, every 4 hours, we ship a truckload of product to one of the country's largest over-the-counter drug manufacturers. That's more than 2,000 truckloads delivered annually to meet our customers' just-in-time packaging needs.
Our unique cut and stack labels include barcodes that enable our customers to track their products through their entire supply chain. This helps keep people safe from fake medicines by promoting product authenticity and preventing counterfeiting.
We keep our teammates safe by identifying exposures before serious injuries occur. Today, we mark 885 days without a lost time incident. That's more than 2 years.
We are passionate about what we do, and that passion motivates us to make a difference for our customers, each other, and our families.
Thanks to the innovative and resourceful Holland team that's providing winning solutions to their customers while keeping each other safe from injury, the COVID-19 virus. Let's follow the example of the team in Holland by practicing the 3 W's at work and away from work. That's wash your hands, wear your mask, and watch your distance. Thanks to our incredible WestRock teammates around the world for your commitment to staying safe so that we can continue delivering essential products to the people who need them.
Stay safe, stay well, and stay strong.
Stay safe, stay well, and stay strong. Okay, so that's our plant in Holland, Michigan. I don't know if you noticed in the video how closely you watched the names of the people, but Tamir's son works at the plant, and he's in the video and does a great job for us leading leading that plant. And that plant's each plant's different, but that's a pretty typical plant for us. They're very much customer focused, very much operationally focused, and I think have just do a fantastic job. So I wanted to share that with you. We've been doing those videos really since COVID, and we'll do one a week. We post them on LinkedIn, and it provides some connection of the people in our company with each other during a time when it's very difficult to connect with one another. So with that, Rich, I'll just stop. And I know I'd just be happy to take your questions or others' questions.
Sure. Well, we've got a couple of prepared questions, Steve. I'd like to run through a couple, and then we've already generating some questions from the audience, but I've got a couple that I'd like to ask, and I'll take my prerogative as the moderator here to ask a few of my own, and then we'll get to the participants here as well. One of the things that struck me in reviewing your presentation this morning on WestRock is sort of the intense focus on the customer. The vision statement, the value proposition is all very, very customer focused. And you know, as the CEO, I'd appreciate your view on the the statements that have come out from the Business Roundtable and several other CEOs around the world on sort of the shareholder view of the objective function of the firm versus the stakeholder view of the firm. Tamir mentioned at the beginning, introducing you, that Fortune is one of the, or listed WestRock as one of the best places to work. So you clearly have a strong focus on the employee. Your vision statement is a strong focus on the customer, and this, you know, stakeholder view of the firm is very much the CEO taking that view, and contrast that with the shareholder view of the firm. I'm just curious if you have a view on that debate that's taking place right now.
Thanks for asking the question. I do have a view, and it's a pretty strongly held view. And there's been, it's interesting because the Business Roundtable, I think it was about a year ago, because I was traveling with the head of the Business Roundtable and spoke to him about it. And I think, just for review, I think this is stakeholder view, and then you have the Milton Friedman view going back to 1970, to say if you focus on making a profit, then you're serving your purpose. I'll refer you to the WestRock logo that we've been in business for 5 years, and I'm looking at the. I don't have a good picture of the logo, but it's down in the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, so that is the logo. Okay, and notice there's 5 layers. So when we had a choice to come up with a name and a logo of the company, and so 5 years ago, the 5 layers actually have meaning. And so and it's for customers, investors, suppliers, community, and employees. And the employees, the orange is the safety color in the middle. So we very early on, so 5 years ago, I was talking to the Business Roundtable. Thank you. Talking to the Business Roundtable and said we were 5 years ahead of time for the Business Roundtable. Mm-hmm. So I just firmly believe that it's a virtuous cycle. I don't think most of our customers want us to be profitable.
Right.
I don't know if anybody's had the opportunity to work with a bankrupt supplier, but it's not fun. It's not fun to work with a bankrupt customer as well. And so financial viability is important. And then for sustainability, our company doesn't work without people. And so we need people, suppliers, we need investors. So the virtuous circle of the stakeholder view, I'm very clear about. It's not much of a debate from my standpoint. We have to serve all of the constituencies of our company, from investors, suppliers, customers, and communities. So that's my answer.
Well, thanks very much for that. I think I appreciate the Appreciate your thoughts there. You talked a little bit about how you've been building some community with these videos during COVID. I assume sharing them around the company as you've been doing that. What other disruptions have you encountered from COVID as it happened over the last 6 months?
Well, probably the biggest time of disruption was in March and April.
Mm-hmm.
And so demand for our products went down extraordinarily fast. Although I feel very fortunate that we're not in the airline business or the hotel business. But areas where we've had substantial drops in demand, just what we do every day is reflected in demand for our products. And so many of us are not traveling. And so we do a lot of packaging for duty-free stores. And so that demand has dropped off. We're not going to stores as much anymore. And so we make a lot of commercial print for signage in stores. And so demand for that has gone down. We'll make, one of our paper mills will make the manila folders that called office products. That's gone down a lot. And so we've had to adjust to that. At the other extreme, all of us have been going to grocery stores a lot more. So demand for packaging for food in the center of the store has actually been quite strong. And up until COVID, that was kind of like not a great place to be. Demand was kind of declining rapidly. Well, now it's very strong. E-commerce demand has been very strong. And so with those, the first couple months, there was substantial adjustment. And I think from managing the business, it was very difficult to try and figure out what was going to happen. And so we, in fact, got very conscious about what our priorities should be as things changed. And because there was just so much going on. And we gravitated and we shared with our board priorities. And the first priority was actually pretty straightforward. It was the safety of everybody at work. And it's obviously that's what we need to do. It's also, if we can't operate, it doesn't matter what else happens. And so we put early on a big focus on keeping our employees safe at work. And we put in protocols which are now widely adopted throughout our company. And I think they've worked very well. We look at and we stay very well connected to a lot of companies across industries, and we feel like we're in the highest quartile of how we've implemented those procedures. And then once you get beyond that, and then we've said we're just going to have to adapt very rapidly to changing market conditions. And so that was like picture another set of priorities around that. And then third, we've been very focused on, we want to come through COVID stronger than we entered COVID. And so we haven't taken our eye off the long term. And then as the months have progressed, things have settled down a little bit, meaning demand is not as volatile. Demand for boxes has been actually quite strong. Historically, we've looked at box demand as being attached to GDP. GDP's down, box demand's up. So we've had almost a new paradigm for box demand, and we're adjusting to that. And we continue to adjust to our customers' demands as we go through the pandemic. But we've been blessed in a sense because we did a number of scenarios, upside cases, probably more downside cases.
Yeah.
And demand's been probably better than the downside cases that we imagined 6 months ago.
Yeah, there's certainly been some structural changes in the economy over this time period. So the forecasting models are a little bit different in these regimes. Yeah. I think we've seen that. Curious, as we've seen in some industries and some manufacturing plants, COVID has gotten into some manufacturing plants, and we've had some outbreaks. Has WestRock been able to avoid any outbreaks in any of its plants, or have you been able to intervene quickly if there's been any?
We have had cases in our plants, and I think initially as they occurred, we just addressed them. And so typically what, if we have a case in a plant, we identify the person, meaning, and I say identify, we don't put a poster of the person up, but we identify the person. And then we go through who they were in contact with. And then the people that they were in contact with will be quarantined for 2 weeks. And then immediately after the case is identified, we'll go on and we'll deep clean the facility to contain the cases from expanding. And so and then what's happened over time is we have many plants which are regularly deep cleaning. And then we are now encouraging and requiring face coverings for everybody in the plants. I think if you're an administrative employee in your office, you might not have to be in your office with a face covering on, but if you're working in the plant, then yes. And then we'll do temperature checking when people enter the plants, and then we'll put in to the extent people are working closely with one another, we'll put in barriers so that they'll stay apart. Our issue now is less, I'm going to say, the cases in the plant than it is cases outside the plant. And I think this is becoming something of a national issue, and so it's not unusual for somebody to go home and be with their family, then contract the virus, and then bring in when they come to work. So that's why, again, if you look closely at the what we do on the videos, we're talking about people implementing 3 Ws at work and also away from work. Because that's frankly, it's a bigger issue for us, what people do away from work now than is what people do at work. We've gotten to the point to where now when I go to plants, people it's not unusual for them to say they feel safer at work than they do away from work.
Yeah, we're definitely entering into the fall and winter seasons. Kids are going back to school. And the flu season is coming, so there's definitely it's a different environment that we're moving into nationally, and so I think that you're absolutely right. There's a different sense that's coming, so I think we all have to change our attitudes on how this behavior change comes.
Yeah, Rich, I'll also just say, because I think this leadership is an issue. I've gone to, as I've gone to plants, particularly initially, I had a circumstance to where the leader of the plant was wearing a mask, and then everybody else in the plant was also wearing a mask. So I did that 1 week. The next week, I go to another plant, and the leader's not wearing a mask, and I ask him, what's your policy on wearing masks? This is very early. And his response was we're providing each one of our teammates a choice about whether they want to wear a mask or not, thinking that was, picture I'm empowered, I can choose whether to wear a mask or not. And I'll consider things. And so I called him up afterwards and said, well, I've noticed you might ought to wear a mask, because if you wear a mask, it's likely everybody else is going to wear a mask. And sure enough, that manager took that. He was responsible for, I think, 3 operating locations. So that made him much more aware of the example he set. There's very few examples to where you can just have a physical expression of what a leader does translate into action. And this is one of those, I think, rare examples of wearing a mask. And so I will show the example here. So I wear my mask, I'm in the office, and it really makes a big difference. So
it absolutely makes a big difference. And I think the science here is fairly clear. And I think this topic has been politicized. And I think there's a difference between what your individual rights are in your home versus what your public responsibility is outside of your home. And I think those things have been conflated in our society right now, which is unfortunate. But I do think that we as individuals have a choice to make, and certainly we as public figures, as a CEO or as a public figure, as a dean, have an opportunity to, regardless of what the political debate may be, we have a choice to make how we want to be seen in our own institutions. And certainly I've made that same choice that you're making, to follow the science and demonstrate that same behavior that you are. And I think it does make a difference. Absolutely. And I would encourage others that are on this webinar to consider that same choice. Let's switch to a topic you mentioned just briefly here a second ago about coming out of this pandemic stronger than you went into it, and never waste crisis as an opportunity. So what opportunities do you see coming out of this? How can WestRock be stronger? What is the world going to look different when 6 months from now, 12 months from now? And how do you take advantage of that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of interesting phenomenons that I wouldn't have predicted going into the pandemic. So I thought, I talked about safety at the beginning. I thought COVID would be such a big distraction because, we haven't talked about the personal impact, but the personal impact on people is extraordinary. Mm-hmm. And so even if you're working from home, if you're a single parent and you've got a couple kids, and you're supposed to be working from home, that is very difficult.
Yes.
And so everybody's got their own personal situation. If they have a parent who's in a nursing home, get very concerned about that. So I thought with COVID, people would be so distracted that they'd come to work and we'd have an increase in called physical injury rates. And we track that very carefully. Well, in fact, the opposite has happened. Our frequency of rates and seriousness of injuries has actually improved pretty substantially. And as I go around and talk to people, if you're walking into your place of work and you get a temperature check and we'll ask people to fill out a questionnaire, you immediately think about exposure to COVID, but you also think about the other physical exposures that you're taking. And so just again, I think it's a little bit counterintuitive, but the COVID actually has made people more aware. Rich, you talked about flu shots, and so now people are more concerned about flu shots. And so we're providing flu shots at our operating locations for our teammates so that they don't have to go out and get them. So you've had increase in safety performance, I think, as a unanticipated, inadvertent consequence of COVID. Well, why am I mentioning that now? Because I mentioned sustainability, and I spoke to or listened to somebody who works for one of our trade publications. He said in January he got about one question on sustainability a week. Now he's getting 8, 9, or 10. And so what's happened with our customers is, whereas I thought COVID would be a distraction to the sustainability goals, it's actually been an accelerator to sustainability goals. Because you look at COVID as a sustainability event, it's kind of like the environment did it and we have to manage it. Mm-hmm. Makes people even more concerned about climate change, sustainability, waste, and that's had a very positive impact on our business. And I think is somewhat explanatory where we've had increased demand. So I've looked at the impact on our business. It's actually accelerated many of the good things about our business. And I think and we're extremely well positioned with our customers because of our broad product line of differentiated paper and packaging solutions. I think it's an enhancement to our business.
So it sounds like you're optimistic about the future, especially given the vision statement you positioned earlier, which I assume was written before COVID. Sounds like you're even more optimistic.
Yeah, it was written 5 years ago, and I think it does make me optimistic about the business. It also, like anything else, it forces you to rethink where are you focused on and where do you need to not focus. And so it actually has spurred, I think, pretty productive conversations on let's get even more specific about what we're doing with respect to our operations strategy and capital investment.
So let me ask you a personal question. It's been a remarkable 6 months, certainly for all of us that have lived through this, both at a personal level, but also at a leadership level. So what have you learned about yourself as a leader that you didn't realize about yourself as a leader 6 months ago?
Okay, so that's it's kind of 6 months has gone by so rapidly. It's kind of difficult to do a before and after, but I'll tell you, something that had a big impact on me is just if you go back to March and April, you really don't know what's going to happen, and you don't know what's going to happen to yourself personally, because you just have to deal with, could I have the virus, and could I be, just in 14 days not here anymore.
Right.
You have the people you're dealing with, and we've had I've had personal friends contract the virus, and then you have, from a company standpoint, you don't know if you're going to be an airline or what's going to happen with respect to demand and supply and the actions you have to take. So you're kind of in that, and you can get down, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like this can be, and then I end up. I noticed Angela Ramos is in Puerto Rico, but I think and we have a plant in Puerto Rico, so I wanted to call that out. But many of you are in Atlanta, and then I'll go to Buckhead Church, and Andy Stanley's the pastor there, and he writes on leadership, I think, very articulately.
He does, yeah.
And he somewhere around there, he gave a talk, and the line that I remember from that is, never lose faith in the end of the story. Okay, so it's like never lose faith in the end of the story. And I think that was very powerful for me, because and you talk about what impact 6 months from now, because you talk about leadership and you have vision and how do you apply it, and you look at faith in the end of the story. As a leader, do you really buy into what you're saying with respect to faith in the end of the story? And I think I looked at that, and then it's like I doubled down on what we're doing, because what we're doing is just so I think so important and so powerful. I think that was very helpful. So for me, what I learned about myself as a leader I didn't know 6 months ago is really how much I really bought into our story. Okay, so, and it's kind of like, which is not to say I didn't buy into it before.
Right.
It's like just much more foundational, so picture if you have a house or whatever, you put on a foundation, but if you're in, you can put in piers to make it even more grounded. So I'm like, put piers into the foundation of the story. And so that's my response.
No, I appreciate that very much. I go to the same church so that you do as well. So I've appreciated his approach over this 6 months.
Yeah. The other thing I want to mention is I want to talk about diversity, because I think that's something which is very much different for me than it was 6 months ago.
Okay.
And so you talk about COVID, and then you have George Floyd, Breonna. I mean, you have that sequence of events, and it's had a big impact on many of us, including me. And I think there's a week around June 1st, which is when the videos of George Floyd were there. And I think for us, we out of our 50,000 teammates, 10,000 plus are Black, African American. Okay, so they're a significant component of our business, and just they make incredible contributions to our business. and from our, and we really spurred a lot of conversation on that. And so the Tuesday after what I called the George Floyd weekend, we did a courageous conversation. We had 700 people sign up. And then we had our Jim Nevels, who's on our board and is Black, attended. We did another one the following Tuesday. We had 2,600 people show up. And the impact on me was less the headlines of what was going on in the news than it was the conversations I had with the people I work with every day who are Black. And I'll tell you, my daughter is married to a man who is literally African-American. His family's from Nigeria. He's Black. And when they were dating, Dorothy told me, if we want to go out and get a cab, Dorothy, have to call the cab because they won't pick up my husband. Okay, so I had that as a data point, and I was, okay, well, that's just a data point. When you go through the people in our company to a person, of the average age of our employees, somewhere around 44. We have a broad sense, but if you're going to have a family, you're going to have a family. To a person, they're concerned about their children and grandchildren.
Right.
About how are they going to raise. Okay, and I think the impact over the past 6 months, I'd say that's probably had as great or more of an impact of the diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging for us. And we've had, I think, very productive dialogue. And prior to the summer, our statement was diversity, inclusion, and belonging. And then as we've spoken with people in our resource groups, they're less concerned, I'll just tell you, they're less concerned about diversity, inclusion, and belonging than they are equity.
Right.
And equity is, I want to shop, okay? And I just want to grow my career to whatever. And I think that's come shining through. And I think for us as a organization, I think it goes to our entire management team, that's had a substantial impact that I think is going to be more substantial on our company long-term than many of the things I've already talked about.
So I think that this has been quite a summer for this, for sure. And I do think the George Floyd video is quite shocking to many, many millions of people, not just in the United States, but around the world. You know, at Georgia State, we graduate more African Americans than any nonprofit university in the country today. And we are the only research university in the United States to eliminate achievement gaps, 6-year graduation rates across all racial and ethnic groups here at the university. And we also eliminated all 6-year graduation rates across socioeconomic classes. So if you come from a low-income household or a high-income household at Georgia State, there's no difference in the average 6-year graduation rates here at Georgia State, which is really a remarkable feat that's not been attained by any other university. And you mentioned that the conversation at WestRock has turned out to be elimination of equity gaps. I think of it as providing an opportunity, and that's what Georgia State shoots for, is making sure that everyone that is admitted here knows they have an opportunity to graduate at the same rate or propensity as anyone else. And that's really what this society is supposed to be about, is providing that promise that there's social mobility for if you have that gumption, if you know, for whatever human capital, whatever God has enabled you with, that you can take the greatest advantage of it. And I think that's the greatest gift that we can provide. I think it's very clear that there are still many rigidities in our society that come from a variety of sources that don't let that happen today. And there's a lot of anger and resentment that has built up over time about that and needs to be addressed from a variety of sources, from public, private, nonprofit. Hopefully this is not just a short one-time event, but that it becomes a sustained effort across all of those sectors. I would agree with you. I'm going to look here. We've got just a couple minutes left, Steve. Let me.
Yeah, Richard, I looked at the question. There's a number of questions on sustainability and environment.
Okay.
And I think we actually, I told Tamir that there's a event that was sponsored by the Sustainable Packaging Coalition yesterday, and we kind of put together our discussion on sustainability. And I think one of the questions had a statement of, we were thought of as being, I think, I have to go back and look at the question, but it was not complimentary of our impact on the environment. And just from sustainability, we think about it in three areas. One's people and communities that I've talked a lot, and so I won't repeat that. Talked about planet and then what we can do with our customers. And I think with respect to planet, we've been very successful in reducing our emissions over time. I have to go back to the report that we published earlier this year, but I think we're down 20% since 2015 and our total emissions. So we've made substantial progress, and don't hold me to that, because I'm, as chief financial officer, I want to get the source and everything, but we've made substantial progress on our emissions impact, our impact on water, and we are recyclers. So we're recycle 8 million tons of material, and we use 5.5 million tons of that in our own operation. So we're one of the top 5 recyclers in the world, and that's part of the contribution we make to the circular economy. And then the forest that we call on for our fiber, we use the word forest positive, meaning we plant more trees than we consume. So our industry, from a sustainability standpoint, regenerates the product, recycles the product, and I think has a overall positive impact, particularly when you look at through our customers' lens. That if you go back to Earth Day in 2018, that's when the pictures of plastic in the oceans were there. And so we have a fair amount of demand from customers saying you can improve the packaging by replacing plastic or taking plastic out of the coatings that we put on our products. And our biggest impact on the planet can be our innovating with our customers to help them get the packaging they need. And I think one of the reasons we're consumer oriented is many of the other companies in our business are focused on volume, and they measure volume in terms of tons, and we're not as focused on that sort of volume. We're looking at value we can add to our customers. If we can take material out of our product, that's something we want to do because it helps our customers achieve their objectives. So I'm not sure that's responsive to every question, but I thought it'd be useful to go through that.
Is WestRock carbon neutral?
We're not carbon neutral. So we and there's actually a bit of a government issue about whether biomass is carbon neutral, because if you compare, call it taking oil from the ground versus trees, which actually are carbon sequester carbon, not everybody recognizes that. And so if you take into account the carbon that's absorbed by the trees, that has a big positive impact.
Right.
But no, not, we will use energy to make our product. And so we're not carbon neutral, but we are improving the impact and we're reducing the carbon that we emit into our operations.
Steve, I'm really happy that you touched on sustainability, and it's clear that you built an organization that believes and practices circular economy concept. There were a lot of questions about that. Obviously, being in the paper packaging business, I'm sure one of the questions you hear a lot, depletion of trees and forests and all that, but you responded to that well. Perhaps we have just one more time, couple of minutes to talk about maybe one more topic. You are a global organization, so to what extent that creates complexity, especially when you are pursuing these company-wide objectives such as sustainability and diversity, inclusiveness. How do you manage the complexity of operating in multiple countries where the expectations and stakeholders are more or less the same, but expectations differ?
That's a great question. And so we operate around the world. Our focus, we have a large concentration in Brazil. We've operated there since the 1950s. And diversity is an issue there, and it's a different issue than it is in the United States. Europe has some of the same issues, and then we operate in Asia, and probably have more employees in China than any other country. And what I found is very helpful is when we formed WestRock, we established very clear values, which are integrity, respect, accountability, and excellence. We communicate those. In fact, we develop those through the global organization through a series of conversations. So they resonated throughout all of the teammates that we have around the world. And then we communicate very strongly about we're a value-based organization, and that resonates. That resonates with the people we have working at the company. That's been very helpful. I will tell you, global is complex from a legal, tax, other standpoint. I think I'll also tell you it's a big plus for us because we're able to observe what others do around the world. And I think no matter where you are in the world, you end up being centric about wherever you are is the center of the world. And if you didn't think about it and where you are, then probably it doesn't exist. And I find as I've traveled around the world, and I think the last trip I took was to India in February, and I haven't been outside the country since then. I stuck my feet in Canada a couple of weeks ago, but the most significant, and everywhere I go, there's ideas that they're just the way people operate, the way people speak about their business is very educational and is additive to each other around our company. So we encourage that communication.
Operating globally obviously is a great way to benchmark yourself, your business practices and standards and accomplishments. So thank you so much. I see, Hannah, our time is up. Perhaps any final thoughts, Steve or Rich, before Hannah wraps it up? And well, I should say also, we have quite a few questions. We do assemble these and we'll pass them on to you, Steve, and you'll have a chance to see and respond to some. Thank you.
Just from me, Steve, I want to say thank you very much for your time today. It's been an enjoyable hour, and we had a whole series of questions, both from our participants as well as pre-read questions that you and I had shared back and forth, and we didn't get to half of them. Right. So it was wonderful to spend time with you today, and thanks very much for sharing your wisdom with all of us.
Okay, thanks very much, Rich, Tamir, Hannah, and everybody who participated on this call. I enjoyed it. Hope you learned something, and hope to stay in touch.